to Prospecting on Purpose. Happy Friday. Happy last day of January. This is our first ever live episode of the show, and we're going into season 3 of the podcast. And one of my goals is to make it more interactive. So I want to first thank everyone for being here. And then second, I want to welcome our guest because this is a very special episode. I had to bring out a heavy hitter, and I am thrilled to welcome Brynne Tillman to the show. Brynne, so happy to have you on.
Oh my gosh, Sarah, I'm so happy to be your first guest. I'm giddy.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be so great. So for those of you who are on LinkedIn and don't know Brynne, you need to know Brynne. She is the CEO of Social Sales Link, The Modern Banker, and co-creator of Ask SSL AI. She is also a LinkedIn insider, one of 37 globally. So she is the perfect person for our topic today. And then she's also an author, speaker, edutainer. She brings 30 years in sales and sales training experience to the digital world. She is brilliant. She is a cherished mentor and now friend of mine. And we met on LinkedIn. We are so lucky to have her for this first episode. So Brynne, welcome.
Thank you so much. And we've already got people chatting away on the live in LinkedIn. So I love that. It's already engaging.
Awesome. Yeah, feel free. And Brynne, I did not ask you this ahead of time, but we're going to wrap up the episode right at the hour mark if people have to drop. But if you have a couple more minutes, let's hold some time for questions. So please feel free to drop in the chat if we go, if you want to ask her specific questions and dive deeper into some of our topics. We have a very value-packed episode today. We're talking about AI and LinkedIn best strategies for 2025 when it comes to social selling. So Brynne, I want to just start there. Explain to us, what does social selling mean?
Well, you could ask 100 LinkedIn and social selling trainers and get 101 answers. But I really believe social selling is about building rapport and leading to relationships through providing value and resources, earning the right to get the sales call. So when we say social selling, we go, yes, we want to sell, but we can't start off our relationships in sales mode, right? We want to detach from what that prospect is worth to us and attach to what we are worth to that prospect. Because when we can bring value, we earn the right to get the call. And I think the biggest challenge when people are defining social selling is, oh, this is a place I can go pitch, right? Because that's what we think of when I'm selling. But I want to look at social selling as a relationship building, networking opportunity that leads to opportunities.
I love that definition. I describe it as Stephen Covey's emotional bank account. So you have to just fill the other person's bank account. And what happens, especially on this particular platform on LinkedIn, people try to pull from an empty bank. And so I love the way you phrase it. You have to earn the right to even ask for the meeting or ask for the partnership.
Right. You do it too soon. People feel like they've been duped. They've been scammed. They've been, what they call pitch slapped. Is that what they call it? Right. All these, I forget who says
that. Your commission breath.
Right. All those things. Right. And we can much more quickly get a bad reputation than build a good one, let alone build it back. Right. And here's the difference. Like if you're cold calling on the phone and you leave a message and they're not interested and they just delete. But when you do this on LinkedIn, they see your company, they see your profile, they see your face, right? And we can really be challenged in building that ugly sales reputation, that used car person reputation. And, in today's world, we don't want to be seen as sales. And I hate, sales is not a bad word, but to buyers, as sales could be seen as, I'm not looking to buy anything right now.
Right.
Our job in sales is to build rapport by providing value and leading people to our solution if it's the right solution.
Right.
So most of our buyers are not actively looking for our services right now. So just because they accepted our connection request on LinkedIn does not make them a prospect or a lead. right? And so often I'll say, treat them as if they were at a networking event. It is a human being, not a lead. You start a conversation, you find out what's important to them, you identify, and sometimes what's important to them has nothing to do with what's important to you. However, if you know there's a good chance at one point they would need your services, but they don't recognize it, that's where education and insights comes in, right? We can plant seeds by providing insights and value. So just really quickly, I had a client that's in the property and casualty insurance. And she 100% said it is a financial decision. It's dollars to dollars. And I pulled back for a moment and I said, well, like all insurance is pretty much the same kind of conversation. So I said, well, if you have the right insurance and the right coverage and you're not overpaying for coverage you don't need, or you don't have a gap that's going to cost you more money later because you didn't have the right coverage. So what you're buying is the resource, the subject matter expert who can ensure that the insurance you have is the right insurance and long-term is the best decision. Even if it's a little more dollars now, it saves them maybe millions of dollars later because that gap has been filled. So what most people buy is ROI, return on that investment, not the actual investment. Right? And so that takes some time. And a lot of that is through education and insights.
I love that.
Tangent there.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. And I think a good line in the sand is you have sales reps who are the pitch slappers, and then you have sales professionals who are having a business conversation. And I think one big takeaway I had, Brynne, from what you said was to think about LinkedIn like a digital networking event. You wouldn't go up to someone and say, hey, Brynne, it looks like you struggle to dress yourself. Do you want my fashion advice, and then when you don't respond, oh, looks like this isn't a priority to you. You see those messages. And I think that's why I'm excited to talk to you about this particular blend, because I'm going to switch gears a little bit and start dabbling in the AI waters, because it feels like the AI resources we've seen out there is obviously to automate our lives, make our lives easier. But when you're thinking from a salesperson perspective, are you just spamming a bunch of people? How do you blend the social selling and the relationship building and the human being piece with the technology? I think that's where I struggle.
Yeah, so I love that. So first, there is a difference between AI and automation with LinkedIn. I love automation in CRMs. I love automation in marketing. It is wrong in relationship building. So let's be really clear. In the same sense of this is an online networking meeting, you would not send a robot to a networking meeting to build relationships. And that's what automation is doing on LinkedIn. The other thing is, it does break LinkedIn's user agreement 8.2.2. Just does, whether we like it or not. And companies will say, well, we are a completely legal, legitimate company. And they're right, because LinkedIn cannot dictate what those companies do, but they can dictate what their users agree to. So all that being said, in my mind, automation on LinkedIn is a fail.
Okay.
Number two, AI. Well, I'll say most folks that I talk to have two challenges with AI. Number one, it's too complex to figure out, and I just don't have the time to figure it out, right? Number two, it's not in my voice. It sounds very, and I read a blog post and I'm like, well, in today's ever-changing world, I'm like, yeah.
Let's delve into blah, blah, blah.
Right. I had this conversation with Bob Woods today because he uses the word delve like for real in real person. He's like, I have to stop because I can't use it anymore. Anyway, which I think is really funny. So where does ChatGPT come in? Well,
Mhm.
or AI. So we have askssl.ai that we have built to solve a lot of these problems. But really what it comes down to is using AI to personalize. And personalization is not necessarily at scale, the way we think of scale, right?
Mhm.
Personalization is I've taken the time. However, I've got some templates and I've got some things where, it's a general message that simply by adding in someone's profile, you can download a PDF, copy and paste, simply by adding their profile, I'm speaking directly to them in words that they use.
Mm.
But it's still in my framework and my voice. And so I think that's the fine line. So I don't want to look at AI as set it and forget it,
Okay.
but I want to look at AI as the tool that helps us personalize comments, messages, blog posts based on our avatars or personas or there's a million words for our client, what our client is, but it's teaching AI to understand the voice that you want expressed, including the prohibition. So we have a 6-step framework. I'll go quickly.
Okay.
It's called CRISPY.
Oh, cute. Okay. Easy.
This is the prompt: context, role, inspiration, scope, prohibitions, and you. Okay, so what does that mean? Context: I would like a blog post on AI in marketing. Great. Role: you are an award-winning marketer who understands AI better than anyone in the world. Or maybe you are Neil Patel, or whatever voice, whatever role you want, the LLM, ours is
Mhm.
askssl.ai, whatever you want that LLM to do. So that's role. Then inspiration. Now it's all about these are all the things, the thoughts I have, the ideas that I
Mm.
have, the direction I'd like this to go in. As much as comes to mind, that would be in your wish list of what this blog post will look like at the end, right? Then there's scope. I would like this to be 1,000 words and search engine optimized. Okay.
Mm.
Then we have prohibitions, crisp, P. Prohibitions are amazing. So prohibitions, I have 2. We talk. Number 1, don't ever start a sentence with a prepositional phrase in today's.
Mm.
And do not use the word delve or foster, do the words delve or foster.
So you're prohibiting the learning machine to use those metrics when it creates the content.
Correct.
Got it. Prohibition.
So,
Okay.
so if you're in financial services, it's never use the word guarantee. Right. So there are lots of ways to use prohibitions, not just with words and phrases. But I mean, you could say never name a competitor.
Oh, smart. Yeah.
Right. So then there's you, and this is, I think, what brings it all together, and it's the magic potion, which is ask me all the questions you need to complete this task one at a time.
Oh, that's cool.
So now it's, because if you don't do that, it's going to go and you've got your post, you've got your content, you've got your message, whatever you're looking for. But when you ask that, it will ask you I cannot predict, is it 3 questions or 5 questions? And the next time you run it, it might be different based on your answers, right? It's the LLM brain that says, okay, for me to do all these things, for me to meet that inspiration.
Mm.
So the inspiration is really important, not just the blog post on this topic, but you need to say, like, this is the feel. I want them to feel compelled. I want them to have aha moments. That's all the inspiration. And then in the ask me all the questions, it now knows to ask you questions that will lead to that.
Okay, that is brilliant. So the prompt is crispy.
Mm-hmm.
Context, role, inspiration, scope, prohibitions, you, and that you is ask me all of the questions you need to know to complete this.
Right.
One
Oh,
question
Bob
at
is
a
in
time.
chat saying no more delve for me.
I know. Sorry, Bob. And actually, I want to give a quick shout out to Bob because last season we did an episode for 2024 LinkedIn best practices, and that was the most shared episode of season 2. So kudos to Bob. But also, that's why we wanted to continue the conversation because so much has changed from 2024 to 2025. And obviously, a big part of that is AI. So, Brynne, when it comes to LinkedIn, what are some other things we can kind of look forward to in the year ahead? I mean, the crispy, already a game changer. The ask me interview questions one at a time. Boom, mic drop. Keep going. Give us some more goodness, please.
All right, so I'll talk about 2 really major areas to focus on. One is leveraging your social proximity, and the other is the content that will convert. So your social proximity, you talk about proximity, it's all the people around me. My social proximity are all the people I'm connected to, right? And in LinkedIn, whether you have the free LinkedIn or Sales Navigator, depending on which one you have, you can go deeper. You can narrow the scope of your existing connections based on location, industry, role. There's just a ton. And then you get into Sales Navigator, and it could be by funding or seek executive change jobs, right? Like there's so much you can do. But the goal is to map out your social proximity that is aligned with your ICP, your ideal client prospect. So who am I already connected to that meets the criteria? Essentially, who have I been ignoring all this time, right? Who's in my list that I haven't talked to in a while? And, it's really interesting what you start to find because, LinkedIn tells us that there's a 20% turnover year over year. So that means 1 out of 5 people that we're talking to is going to be gone next year. And 1 out of 5 people we talked to last year is gone this year, right? So by taking inventory of our existing connections, we're going to create some aha moments for ourselves. Oh, look, she moved here. Oh my gosh, he got promoted, right? And often when I'm working with clients around this taking inventory, there are dozens of untapped opportunities in their existing connections. So that's the first thing, right? And we can look at your social proximity, really can have almost 4 quadrants, right? So it's going to be first degree connection decision maker. Let's see if I could do this off the top of my head without any. First degree connection decision maker. The second quadrant is first degree connection influencer. So someone in the company. Maybe I sell to the CEO, but my first degree connection is the CFO or the VP of sales, right? So someone in that company that can get me to the decision maker. It may even be someone who's involved in the process, but not the check writer, right? So they may be able. The next quadrant is a second degree to my decision maker. My client knows, so my first degree is first degree connected with my prospect. So it's a second degree connection, but I have a warm connection who has a warm connection with my prospect.
Right.
Either a very strong networking partner or a client. And we can start to leverage those relationships to grow our pipeline.
Smart.
The fourth quadrant, not as strong, but it does convert, which is second degree to an influencer, right? So, so it's my first degrees inside the company and then my second degrees. And so that I think is some of the best activities sales can do in 2025 and beyond. But
Like
like,
map out their web of connections. And it's so funny because if you think about this like like an in-person networking event, if I know Brynne and I realize Brynne knows so and so, hey
can you
Brynne, can you
introduce
introduce
me?
me? Let's go over and say hi to him. And it's so funny too because I think that our networks are a lot bigger than we realize. Like there's a comment in here from someone I went to high school with. Hi Chris. I did a sales kickoff earlier this week with somebody else I grew up with. So it's been, 30 years since we were besties, but that person generated revenue for me because we've been starting to reconnect on LinkedIn. So it's been really cool to realize like, yeah, like even I messaged someone the other day I haven't spoken to in 7 years, an instant response. So great to hear from you. And to your point, Brynne, they moved. Now they're the owner of XYZ business that's in the field that I'm chasing. So it's just so, but you have to carve out the time to do it. And I think that's the gap I see is people don't always see the value to carve out the time. So I'm so grateful you're walking through this.
Well, one of the, we've got all our little kitschy phrases, right? 21 tenets of social selling, but one that is vital is we need to slow down our outreach to speed up our outcome. Right? Just because you go fast doesn't mean you get the best ROI. I'm going to come back to the return on your investment. So you could go really, really fast in prospecting, and there's value in that. You're cold calling a huge list, you touch a lot of people, whatever. For some people, there's real value in going fast. In parallel, we need to go a little slower too, or standalone. It just depends on what you want to accomplish, right? And so the slowing it down is a deeper connection. It's still a numbers game, sales is, but it's, I have really defined who I want to have conversations with. I've identified what's meaningful to them. Now we're going to get into the content anyway, so this is perfect, right? So we've identified what's meaningful to them and recognize what's meaningful to them is probably almost definitely not what you want to share with them. So we'll talk about that for a moment, in a moment, right? So, we've got to nurture, so LinkedIn is a slower game, but so is networking, right? Like you go to a networking meeting, it takes you, 45 minutes to get dressed and a half hour to get there and 2 hours for the meeting and an hour home. Like it's an investment of time, but you've met deeper relationships there than you could have making cold calls.
1,000%. And it's really hard to reject someone after you've met them. It's hard to just ignore and ghost someone you've met.
So networking on LinkedIn is an event. It is not cold calling.
I love it. Okay.
It shouldn't be, right? So should I jump into the content
side?
Yeah,
that'd be great.
All right. So content, we have to identify content that resonates with our buyers. It actually should hit 5 things. Now, a caveat, not all your content has to do what I'm about to say, but the content that converts does. Okay. So you can have content. I went to an event. My favorite content in 2025 is Sarah and I taking well, it wasn't quite a selfie because the salesperson actually took the picture, but our picture, which our friend Janice sent us in a send out card, which is now in my refrigerator, right?
Mine's on my wall.
So, right. Yeah. So, so posts don't all have to be what I'm about to say. They can be lots of other things. They could be events, they could lots of things. But if you want to post that is going to convert, meaning we take a lurker who consumes that content and then takes a compelling action, so we know they're there. So we've moved them from lurker to engager. So the first thing it needs to do is resonate with the buyer. So why does resonate with the buyer matter? Because I'm scrolling, or you sent me something in my inbox and I'm scanning. So I need to immediately go, oh, this is for me. And sometimes it's literally calling out their title and industry. That will get them to go, oh, this is this is the niche. This is for me. The second thing I need to do is create enough curiosity. So like that's a fast reaction. Resonate, create curiosity. Because if I don't create curiosity, I'm not going to keep reading.
Right.
Number 3, and this is 3 and 4 go together, but number 3 is teach them something new that creates an aha moment. So the insurance person, if they go out there saying, and I'm making, like, I'll try not to use a stat because it would be all made up. But if the insurance person went out there and said 72% of commercial insurance coverage policies, not my world, no. So, are not appropriately aligned with customers' risk stuff, right? I got to get better at it.
Yeah.
Right. So now I go, okay, so now how do I make, so 72% I'm making, right? But 72% of CEOs in manufacturing have misaligned commercial insurance that may put them at huge financial risks.
Ooh, okay. So if I'm an executive at a manufacturing or even in that industry too, we're trying to sell into the industry, I'm stopping the scroll.
You go, oh, that's a big number. Now, don't use a stat that I just made up that stat, but that's the point, right? Go Google, you can find stats to back up almost anything as long as you have some research somewhere, right? So, okay. So now I need to teach them something new. So it could be, and I should not be playing in the insurance world, but I am now, right? So it should be something like there are 5 areas in a policy where manufacturing is typically undercovered and 3 places where they are overcharged for things they don't need. All right. So now I go, oh, I never looked at that. So what I just did not only taught them an aha moment, like, oh, aha, I know what to go do, but number 4 is it gets me thinking differently about my current coverage.
Right.
Or my current insurance broker that didn't ask me the same questions that I'm getting asked in this blog post.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Right? And then number 5 is I'm back to that compelling moment, right? So I go, I like it. I comment. Maybe I look at their profile. Maybe I ask them to connect. But I move them, that content now moves them from reading it to engaging. They come out of the woodwork because I can't start a conversation with someone until I know who they are.
Okay, makes sense. So that's really where the content that converts is the piece. Like you can do content all day, but the 5 elements are what's going to actually move the needle and start the engagement, which then gives you the opportunity to earn the right to ask for the meeting or ask for the business. Boom. Oh, I loved it. Brynne, could you, we are just rolling and I have so many more questions for you. Are you good to go for like another 15?
I am. You have me until the bottom. I have a whole hour scheduled because I thought we would chat afterwards. So
I know. Well, let's keep chatting with our audience here because I have a couple more things I want to ask you too. And then obviously we'll queue you all up for questions. Thank you so much for engaging in the chat. I'm having so much fun and I see seems like a lot of our listeners are too. With the content that converts, I think that there's on my LinkedIn feed, I see a lot of people like myself, like entrepreneurs or self-employed individuals creating content to establish themselves as a thought leader, but also trying to create content that converts. But I think there's an area, like I look back at my corporate sales role and I was not using LinkedIn in the remotely powerful way that you were laying it out for us. So let's maybe walk through like one more example of combining these different elements you're talking about, like using the AI to make sure that we're creating content and prompts that are relevant for our audience that we're targeting. Obviously leveraging our social capital or our social Proximity. Thank you.
Yeah.
Social proximity. I was going to get there. And then creating content that converts. Can we like wrap that all up in another example for maybe like a B2B salesperson who is, my background was a lot of architects and developers, and they all work with each other. And I wasn't using LinkedIn in a way I think I could have to really stand out and really be a face of my own personal brand, but a face of my company, and really establish that thought leadership. So I'd like to spend some time there.
Yeah. So we could talk about like campaigns, for example.
Okay.
Like if we're going to go, when I think of sales, if we go at it like a campaign. So let's start with a prospect by poll.
Okay.
So I want to start to identify what content is a top priority for manufacturers, right? And so I put out a poll, and I have, what do you see as the biggest risk in 2025, right? And then A, B, C, and then D is always other sharing comments. The reason is people get annoyed if their answer isn't there, or they want to say all of the above, or so we always give them that option. So, so we do a poll, and they answer the poll, and then you go, oh, everyone that answered number 2 has this need. Everyone that answered number 1 has this need. So now I'm going to maybe I could create a little white paper. So how do I use AI? I take those answers and I put in a really good prompt using the crispy formula. And I put in a really good prompt that says, the context is, I want you to write a report based on poll answers from this question. The role, you are a research analyst and a Nobel Prize author, whatever, right? Best-selling New York Times author. So those are your 2 roles. The inspiration is, I want to convey all of the perspectives from the voters. My scope is, I want to make sure there's a page for each answer. Whatever. And then my prohibitions are don't use any prepositional phrases, and don't use the word Delver Foster. Then my why is, ask me all the questions you need to complete this. So now I run that, and it's going to say, well, what was the question? And then it'll say, well, what were the answers? And it'll say how many people answered each of these. And then, then, so now I can answer that, and I get a little tiny report. Maybe I even say, not report, I want a blog post based on this. Okay, so now what do? I've got this blog post, and I have 72 people that voted, and 9 of them are prospects. So I'm going to go out to those prospects, and I'm going to go, okay, now I have this blog post that came from my verbiage and the actual poll. And I'm going to go out to those 9 people and say, thank you so much for voting on the poll. I'm putting out a blog post. I would love to get a quote from you to include on why you answered this. And so I reach out to 9, and 3 of them schedule with me, and I get quotes from them. And now I mention them, and, I've had a conversation, I'm building rapport. And now I can come back after it's all out, and I share it with their colleagues. I socially surround their colleagues with the report with their quote. So I've been vetted internally simply because I'm having conversations with the boss or whatever that might be.
Right.
And now I take that, that all the information, I send it to new people. Hey, I'm going to do another poll. I would do another poll, send it to new people, and say, here, I want to show you what the last poll turned out to be. Vote on this poll, and I can interview you, right? It becomes a whole thing. But now how do we convert that, right? Like, okay, so we have all these conversations. How do I convert this? Well, it comes down to this. Sarah, thank you so much for your insights. Really, I think it's going to bring a lot of value to our readers. I hope you don't mind, but when we were chatting, I heard you say this, and I've been thinking about this, and I've got some ideas for you. Are you open to a second call?
Okay, I love it.
right? We've earned the right, we've built the rapport, and we're asking permission. We're not spamming, we're not, I have ideas for you. Now we have permission to share our ideas.
You know what's so cool about that, Brynne, is I think, everyone's out there saying authentic connections, relationships. You need to establish relationships, and nobody's giving like the step by step how to do it, especially more efficient, streamlined, and with intentionality. So I love that something as simple as a LinkedIn poll. I feel like I hope everyone on our live feed is going to, put a poll out next week, because the poll then generates the opportunity to reach back to people, to prospect by interview, to use your language and get them on the phone to give a quote. You said something else that I thought was really powerful. Now, if I interview, Jane Smith at XYZ firm, now I might be able to ping Joe, Billy, and Gary, at the same firm, because I can have that little social proof that I met Jane and she and I are connected, and she's part of the content that I've built with her expertise and my expertise.
Right. And so the way, I went through this so quickly, but the way I do this is, Joe recently interviewed Jane. She had some great insights. Let's connect. I'm happy to send you a link to the post.
Love it. Okay, that's so cool, because I think, but that obviously takes time. You have to think, and so I like that you used the word campaign. I think carving out the time to slow down, speed up. Yeah, I mean, the quantity versus quality. The days of like the boiler room, ringing the bell, I think that's over in some ways. Maybe some industries, but in an in-person networking event, like we're talking about on LinkedIn, I love these examples. They're so helpful.
So I had a couple people in chat were asking for me to just kind of go through the
Please,
5
yeah.
again. So the first one is resonate with your buyer. Second one is create curiosity. Third one is teach them something new that creates an aha moment. The fourth one is what they just learned gets them thinking differently about the way they're doing it now, right? Mm-hmm. Number 5 is create the compelling moment, move them from lurker to engager. So
thank you. That was excellent. And then I want to talk a little bit about, because you mentioned it a couple of times, but you have built your own AI learned language machine.
So a large language but model, but the LLM, but I know it could be a million things. So we built a askssl.ai, which actually leverages OpenAI, but it solves all the problems we had with AI. The biggest one is I've got different clients with different voices. I sell to manufacturing and I sell to flower shops. I don't know, right? Like very different messaging. And as your ChatGPT, Perplexity, whatever is learning, it gets confused, right? So that's number 1. Number 2, I have to reteach it things all the time. Like I have, right? Like it doesn't have, even though it has instructions, it doesn't get it. And it, even in the same chat, it starts over and it's, and I'm like, I told you that 5 chats up or whatever, right? So that's one problem. The other is because we're obsessive compulsive about prompt writing, because we love it so much. And I'm going to make an executive decision. Both Stan and Bob are on here, but look out for our new book, Prompt Writing Made Easy.
Ooh, okay.
We're very excited. But it's how do you save your prompts and use them over? You've got a great prompt. How do I use it over again? Because we've got to start over. Oh, thank you, my friend. How do you save that and use it and perfect it? And, so we've got a great prompt. Where do you save it? How do you grab it? How do you improve it? The other thing is, so I have chats that I do with someone and then I want to find it 3 months later.
Right.
So Ask SSL allows you to categorize by client. We can name it. So I have my Sarah Murray, I have 2 chats for us, right? Oh. I have, right. But and if I want to look, you are, I think you're under member, right? Because you're a member of our community. Mm-hmm. So it really allows us to, stay organized, have consistency. It's not an easy button, but it's definitely an easier button, right? Like it's definitely, and you can continue to build on it. So I see a lot of, oh, Bob just put in the name of the book.
Oh, perfect. And when it's ready, I can link it back to this thread too. So it lives in this
so
thread
it will be promptwritingmadeeasy.com, but it's not live yet.
Okay, perfect. Well, and I think what is so fun about, you and your business and your team, hi, Bob and Stan and Gunnar, you can just see how much has changed even in the past year. And it's so wild because we know it's not slowing down. We know it's just ramping up. And so I appreciate that you took all the different, areas where it wasn't serving you and then built a tool around it. So askssl.ai. I put it up there. I'll put it in the show notes too. This will be repurposed and also live on the Prospecting on Purpose podcast. We can wrap up our formal interview, but then I'd love to, if people have questions. I saw one question we haven't yet answered. So we'll hang on to answer a couple more questions while we have Brynne, but I want to thank everyone for being here. Thank you so much for tuning into the first live episode of Prospecting on Purpose.
Thank you for having me.
So fun. I like that we just, we're both salespeople. So it's like, we'll be fine. It'll be fun. And I had one question that we didn't get a chance to answer through the thread was talking about the quadrant. So you were going through your first degree connections, first degree to an influencer, second degree to the prospect, and then second degree to an influencer. Does that quadrant live somewhere online?
I have a visual in a presentation. I'm sure it's in our 12-week. Where do I find it? Our 12 session course. I'm sure it's in there. And we probably even have an ebook out there. Okay. So what I would say is connect with Stan, Bob, or myself, and just say, hey, I'm looking for that quadrant. And I'm pretty sure I have a blog post out there. I know I have. Yes. Okay. Connect with us and we'll get it to you. But essentially, it's influence and relationship, right? So the strength of the influence and the strength of the relationship. So the top right is the strongest. You've got high influence, high relationship, right? The bottom would be high relationship, lower influence.
Got it.
Right? So, and that's kind of the way the quadrant works, but I'll get this. So,
okay. And I'll link it in the show notes for this episode too. So this episode will live on the Prospecting on Purpose podcast. I want to thank everyone so much for tuning in. Hopefully this is the first of a monthly live episode. I want to thank Brynne Tillman for being my friend. We met, I don't remember when we met. I guess I'll have to look, but I think I know exactly how I got into your
world.
Funnel, yeah, and or world, and I am part of the membership group. I love the whole group. Shout out to everyone in the membership group. I just get so much value out of you and your knowledge and the team, but also I think that it really shows the power of using this network correctly. Because I feel I'm just gonna be mushy for a second. I feel proud of myself that I've been able to meet all of these different people out in the world that I've never met in person. You and I had a flight, out of New Jersey. So I was able to spend some time together in person with you and take it off of the computer. But I just want to to set the tone for 2025. Remember that everyone here is here to help each other. People are happy to help when there's reciprocity. I love that you talk about the social selling part, because I do think that sales is something honorable. And if you do it right, you're helping solve problems. And so thank you for being an inspiration and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for being my friend.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. And Brad's asking, will you link the resources? Yes, I will add these comments to the thread on LinkedIn, so it will live on my profile. Brad, let's make sure you and I connect. And then this show is also on every podcast streaming platform, so it'll be repurposed as a podcast episode in a couple weeks, and everything will be in the show notes there too. So thanks so much for tuning in, and we will keep you posted.
Awesome.
All right, thanks everyone. Have a great Friday. Happy end of month 1.